It was a bright Monday morning in downtown Atlanta. The streets buzzed with people rushing to work, coffee in hand, and city sounds blending into a familiar hum. Inside a large glass-walled building on Peachtree Street, James Carter adjusted his navy blue blazer as he walked into First Union Bank. He looked sharp, confident, the kind of man who had meetings lined up with CEOs, not tellers. But today, he came for something simple: to notarize documents and verify his identity for a final bank authorization. James was the co-founder of a cutting-edge tech company about to close a $2.3 billion partnership with a major Silicon Valley firm. Everything was set. He just needed to verify one last ID form in person. As he approached the counter, he smiled politely. "Good morning," he said, sliding his government-issued ID across the marble surface. The bank teller, a middle-aged white woman named Karen, barely looked up. She sighed, snatched the ID with two fingers, and looked at it like it was covered in dirt. James stood quietly, keeping calm, despite the cold reception. After a moment, Karen scoffed and said, "This doesn't look real." She looked James up and down. "We've had issues before," she muttered, almost to herself. James gently replied, "It's a valid ID. I just need it verified. My name is in your system. James Carter. I've banked here for over 10 years." Karen rolled her eyes, then suddenly dropped the ID. Not by accident. She flipped it onto the floor. It skidded toward James's shoes. People around turned. The room got quieter. James blinked, stunned. His hands clenched slightly, but he didn't say a word. He bent down, picked up the ID slowly, and stood back up with grace. "I'd like to speak with your manager," he said evenly. Karen folded her arms. "He's busy. You can wait. Or come back." That's when James realized this wasn't just bad service. This was disrespect. And something inside him decided he wasn't letting this slide. James stood still for a moment, gripping his ID between his fingers. His heartbeat was calm, but his mind raced. Not out of anger, out of calculation. This wasn't just a moment of disrespect. It was a moment that could define something much bigger. He looked around the bank. Several people had witnessed it. Some looked away awkwardly, others glanced at him with sympathy. But no one said a word. He stepped to the side, pulled out his phone, and calmly dialed a number. It rang once. "Ms. Langston. This is James." "We may have a situation," he said. On the other end, Natalie Langston, his lead corporate attorney, replied instantly. "What happened? I'm at First Union's downtown branch. The teller just threw my ID on the floor. She refused to verify it. It's being handled poorly." There was a pause. "Got it," Natalie said. "I'll notify the board. Don't do anything." "We'll move." James hung up and sat quietly in the lobby. Karen glared from behind the glass, but he didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He simply waited. 10 minutes later, a younger employee, clearly nervous, stepped out from a side office. "Mr. Carter," he said softly. James stood. "I apologize for the delay. I'm Assistant Manager Kyle. Please come with me." Inside a small office, Kyle shut the door and fidgeted. "I just want to say we're sorry for what happened. It's not how we do things." James looked him in the eye. "Then why did she do it?" Kyle swallowed. "I don't know. She's been here a long time. Some customers are difficult, and I wasn't difficult," James interrupted, calm but firm. "I was professional, and I've deposited more money in this bank than most of your clients combined." Kyle didn't respond. "I needed one form verified for a $2.3 billion deal. That deal might now walk because of what happened here?" Kyle blinked. "Wait, what?" James stood. "This branch, this bank, and your employee may have just cost you everything." And without another word, he walked out of the office. By the time James stepped out of the bank, Natalie had already sent word to the other executives. Within the hour, the story began spreading, not to the media, not yet, but through the quiet, powerful channels of corporate America. Emails, texts, boardroom whispers. Everyone knew James Carter. Not just because he was black, successful, and sharp, but because he carried himself with quiet authority. And now he'd been disrespected by a bank that claimed to support minority-owned businesses. James returned to his penthouse office downtown. His assistant, Leo, was already waiting by the elevator. "They heard," Leo said as the doors opened. Who? James asked. "All of them. The investors, the partners, even the tech firm's CEO. Everyone's asking what happened." James walked into the glass-walled conference room and set his briefcase down. He didn't sit. "Good," he said. "Let them ask." Just then, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "Mr. Carter, this is Jordan Myers. I'm the regional director for First Union Bank. I just received a report." "I know what you received," James interrupted. "And I know what you're going to say. But the time to speak was when I was standing in that lobby. Not now, when the money's walking out your front door, sir. I want to assure you." "No," James said sharply. "You want to protect your bank. You think this is about one rude employee. It's not. It's about culture. And what she did tells me everything I need to know about yours." There was silence. "I'll be transferring all company accounts to another institution by the end of the week, and I'll be advising all our partners to do the same." Quietly. "But Mr. Carter." He hung up. Leo watched from the hallway, stunned. "You're really pulling the plug." James finally sat, calm as ever. "She didn't just throw my ID on the floor. She threw away every ounce of trust this bank built over 10 years. Leo nodded slowly. "Do you want me to cancel tomorrow's signing?" "No," James replied. "Let them come. I want them to hear it from me face to face." And just like that, the silence before the storm began. The next morning, the sky over Atlanta was gray, matching the mood in the First Union Bank's corporate offices. Meanwhile, at the top floor of the Horizon Tech building, James prepared for the most anticipated meeting of the quarter. The final signing of the $2.3 billion partnership with Ethereus Technologies. Executives from both companies began to arrive, greeted by quiet assistants and serious expressions. No champagne, no small talk. The mood wasn't celebratory, it was cold, calculated. James entered the conference room last, wearing a charcoal suit, no tie, calm and focused. Everyone stood as he entered, mourning. He said simply. Seated across from him was Marcus Reed, the CEO of Ethereus. Beside him sat two corporate lawyers and a financial officer. Papers were stacked neatly, pens lined up, ready for signatures. Marcus leaned forward. "Everything in place." James didn't smile. "Almost, but before we sign, there's something I need to say." The room went still. Even the assistants outside the glass paused. James stood and slowly walked to the head of the table. "Yesterday, I was humiliated at the very bank we've trusted for a decade. Not by accident, not by policy, but by a person who judged me the moment I stepped in." He looked directly at Marcus. "This deal, as you know, was about more than money. It was about making a statement. That minority-owned firms could lead, innovate, and expand at the highest level." Marcus nodded slowly. James continued. "So I have to ask, if we finalize this deal with funds flowing through First Union, a bank that sees my skin before it sees my value, what message are we really sending?" No one responded. They didn't have to. James turned to his lawyer, Natalie. "We're moving the entire deal to a new institution, one that respects who we are, not just our balance sheet. If that delays us, so be it." Marcus exchanged glances with his team. "You'll still have our full support," he said finally. "Wherever the money goes, we go with it." James nodded once. "Then we're in business." On our terms outside, the clouds began to clear.